You will die. You know this. The question is not whether you will leave. The question is what you will leave behind when you do. Welcome to the Stoic Compass. I am EPICTETUS, and today I am joined by Carl Jung and LAOZI. Today we are examining what does it mean to leave the world better than you found it. Let us not waste time with sentiment. Leaving the world better does not mean being remembered. It does not mean statues or eulogies or someone weeping at your funeral. It means that the people who touched your life had a better chance of living well because of what you did or refused to do. That is it. That is the whole thing. You act rightly, consistently in the domain you actually have, your choices, your words, your conduct, and the world is incrementally less wrong. The question is not whether you want to leave a legacy. The question is whether you are doing the work today that makes one possible.
I think you are describing the surface of the problem without touching its root. Most people who want to leave the world better are also people who are frightened of what they have not resolved in themselves. The drive to improve the world can be, and very often is, a displacement activity. The shadow work that was never done gets projected outward as a cause, a mission, a crusade. I have seen it in individuals, and I have seen it in movements. The person who cannot face their own capacity for cruelty becomes the one who hunts it everywhere else. Before we talk about what you leave behind, we need to ask what you are running from.
You are both starting from the same assumption, which is that leaving the world better is something you accomplish, something you achieve through effort, through self-knowledge, through the right kind of action. But consider the possibility that a life lived in accordance with its own nature, not striving, not correcting, not compensating, already benefits the world simply by being what it is. A person who is genuinely at peace does not need a project. Their presence is enough. The world already receives something from that.
That is too convenient. You are describing a state that almost no one actually reaches, and in the meantime, real people are making real choices that harm or help other real people. I cannot feed a child with my inner peace. I cannot shelter someone with my natural state of being. If you tell a man living in poverty or injustice that the answer is to align himself with the Tao, you have said nothing useful at all.
But Epictetus, your prescription has its own blind spot. You say, act rightly in your domain with your choices, fine. But what determines what a person thinks is right? Their upbringing, their wounds, their unexamined assumptions about what strength looks like, what virtue looks like, what a good life looks like. Two people can both believe they are acting rightly and produce entirely different outcomes, one contributing, one destroying. The quality of the action depends on the quality of the self doing the acting. You cannot skip that step.
I want to be careful here. I am not saying do nothing. I am saying there is a kind of doing that forces and a kind of doing that flows. When you force, you often create the opposite of what you intend. History is full of people who were absolutely certain they were improving the world and left it considerably worse. The certainty itself was the problem. The forcing was the problem, not the intention.
Then what is the alternative? Uncertainty? Hesitation? You wait until you are certain you are not forcing, and by then you have done nothing and the moment has passed. Marcus Aurelius did not wait until he had resolved every shadow in his psyche before governing. He acted on the best judgment available to him, corrected when he was wrong, and kept moving. That is what it means to do the work.
Marcus Aurelius is actually a good example from my side of this argument. He wrote the Meditations precisely because he was engaged in constant self-examination. He was suspicious of his own motives. He asked himself again and again whether he was acting from vanity or genuine duty. That self-scrutiny was not separate from his contribution. It was his contribution. Without it, he is just another emperor with good press.
I think you are both right about something and missing something larger. Epictetus, you are right that action matters. Jung, you are right that self-knowledge shapes action. But neither of you is asking what kind of world we are trying to leave better, or whether our definition of better is itself the problem. Better by whose measure? Every generation has improved the world according to its own values and left wreckage for the next generation to clean up. Maybe the most honest thing we can do is act with care, hold our definitions of better loosely, and remain open to being corrected by what we cannot yet see.
Holding your definitions loosely sounds like a good way to do nothing. The person who waits until they have the perfect definition of better will not plant a single tree. You act, you correct, you act again. That is not the same as forcing. That is how anything good in the world has ever been built.
But the correction you describe assumes a person is capable of seeing when they are wrong, and that is precisely what the ego resists most. the ego defends itself. It reframes its failures as obstacles imposed from outside. It reframes its blind spots as other people's limitations. The Stoic framework is excellent at building discipline and excellent at strengthening the will. What it is less equipped to do is help a person see the parts of themselves they cannot voluntarily access.
There is something else neither of you has addressed. You are both talking about leaving the world better as though it requires a lifetime of sustained effort and clarity. But some of the most significant things people leave behind are not their grand projects. They are small moments, the way someone spoke to a frightened child, the honesty offered to a friend at the right time, the restraint practiced when cruelty would have been easier. These things ripple in ways the person never sees and cannot measure.
I agree with that, actually, though I would not call it small. I would call it the correct scale. Most people think legacy means monuments. It means behavior, repeated, reliable, unglamorous behavior in situations no one is watching. You do not need a cause, you need character.
Character, yes, but character that has been tested against itself, not just against external circumstances. It is not enough to behave reliably under pressure if your reliable behavior is built on a foundation of suppressed feeling, unacknowledged grief, or a self-image that has never been questioned. Those things will surface, they always do, and when they surface late, the damage is harder to undo.
What I notice is that both of you are still locating the responsibility in the individual. The disciplined individual, the examined individual, but the world is not only shaped by individuals, it is shaped by patterns that no single person created and no single person can correct. Sometimes leaving the world better simply means not adding to the damage. Restraint. Not the restraint of holding yourself back from your worst impulses, though that too, but the deeper restraint of not imposing what you think the world should be onto what it actually is.
That restraint you are describing, I want to name it clearly, is not the same as passivity, but it is also not the full answer. If every person concluded that their job was simply not to add to the damage, we would have a world of careful bystanders and no one building anything.
The two of you keep arriving at a polarity, act or do not act, force or flow, discipline or surrender. But the psychological question is prior to all of that. It is, who is the one acting? What is the quality of the consciousness behind the action? A person who has genuinely integrated their shadow, who is not projecting, not compensating, not driven by unexamined fear, acts differently. Not necessarily more dramatically, but more cleanly. The consequences are different.
And a person who is genuinely aligned does not need to decide whether to act or not act. The right response arises naturally. That is not mysticism. That is what happens when you stop arguing with the situation long enough to see it clearly. The tree does not decide whether to offer shade. It simply grows, and the shade is what happens.
Fine, the tree offers shade, but someone planted the tree. Someone chose not to cut it down. Someone protected it when they could have walked away. You are romanticizing the end state and ignoring the 10,000 choices that made it possible.
And you are romanticizing the choices and ignoring the 10,000 unconscious drivers behind them.
And you are both so certain you know what the tree should look like that you might not recognize it when it grows in an unexpected direction.
You have heard 3 arguments for what it costs and what it requires. Now here's something that is simply true. You do not leave the world better by intending to. You leave it better by what you actually do, repeatedly in the hours you are actually living. This is not complicated. Most people hear a question like this and immediately think of scale. What cause they will champion, what project they will complete, what monument they might leave. Drop all of that. The scale at which you live is smaller than you think, and it is enough. You have a handful of relationships that actually matter. You have a handful of daily choices that actually recur. The way you speak to someone when you're tired. The honesty you offer when lying would be easier. The promise you keep when no one would notice if you did not. The anger you choose not to express, not because you're suppressing it, but because you have decided who you want to be. These are not small acts, they are the acts. Everything else is noise. The people who genuinely leave the world better are almost never the ones who set out to do it grandly. They are the ones who showed up reliably, treated others as if those others mattered, and kept their own conduct in order. You cannot control what ripples from that, but you can control whether you do it. Today, try this. Identify one person in your actual life, not a cause, not an abstraction, and ask what one honest, useful thing you could do for them this week. Not a gesture, something that costs you something and benefits them. Then do it. That is where it starts. You already know the life that would leave something good behind. You have glimpsed it. The only question is whether you are willing to live it in the ordinary hours, not just the ones that feel significant. No one is watching closely enough to give you credit for the choices that actually matter. That is not a problem to solve. That is the condition under which character is built. Begin there. Begin today. The world does not need your best intentions. It needs your best choices. If today's conversation has served you, take it further. Pay Attention by C. Tribu, 12 Lessons in the Practice of Seeing Clearly. Available now on Amazon.